to. Poppy! Poppy could hear her mother's voice, but she couldn't see anything. The kitchen floor was obscured by dancing black dots. Poppy, are you alright? Now Poppy felt her mother's hands grasping her upper arms, holding her anxiously. The pain was easing and her vision was coming back. As she straightened up, she saw James in front of her. His face was almost expressionless, but Poppy knew him well enough to recognise the worry in his eyes. He was holding the milk carton, she realised. He must have caught it on the fly as she dropped it. Amazing reflexes, Poppy thought vaguely. Really amazing. Philip was on his feet. Are you okay? What happened? I don't know. Poppy looked around and then shrugged, embarrassed. Now that she felt better, she wished they weren't all staring at her so hard. The way to deal with the pain was to ignore it, to not think about it. It's just a stupid pain. I think it's whatchamacallit. You know, something gay. Poppy's mother gave her daughter the barest fraction of a shake. Poppy, this is not gastronometritis. You were having some pain before. Nearly a month ago, wasn't it? Is this the same kind of pain? Poppy squirmed uncomfortably. As a matter of fact, the pain had never really gone away. Somehow, in the excitement of the end-of-year activities, she managed to disregard it. And by now she was used to working around it. Sort of, she temporised, but that was enough for Poppy's mother. She gave Poppy a little squeeze and headed for the kitchen telephone. I know you don't like doctors, but I'm calling Dr. Franklin, and I want him to take a look at you. This isn't something we can ignore. Oh, Mom, it's vacation. Her mother covered the mouthpiece of the phone. Poppy, this is non-negotiable. Now, go get dressed. Poppy groaned, but she could see it was no use. She beckoned to James, who was looking thoughtfully into a middle distance. Let's at least listen to the CD before I have to go. He glanced at the CD, as if he'd forgotten it, and put down the milk carton. Philip followed them into the hallway. Hey, buddy, you wait out here while she gets dressed. James barely turned. Get a life, Phil, he said almost absently. Just keep your hands off my sister, you Dev. Poppy just shook her head as she went into her room, as if James cared about seeing her undressed. If only, she thought grimly, pulling a pair of shorts out of a drawer. She stepped into them, still shaking her head. James was her best friend, her very best friend, and she was his. But he'd never shown even the slightest desire to get his hands on her. Sometimes she wondered if he realised she was a girl. Someday I'm going to make him see, she thought, and shouted out the door for him. James came in and smiled at her. It was a smile other people rarely saw. Not a taunting or ironic grin, but a nice little smile, slightly crooked. Sorry about the doctor thing, Poppy said. No, you should go. James gave her a keen glance. Your mum's right, you know. This has been going on way too long. You've lost weight. It's keeping you up at night. Poppy looked at him, startled. She hadn't told anybody about how the pain was worse at night, not even James. But sometimes James just knew things, as if he could read her mind. I just know you. That's all, he said, and gave her a mischievous sideways glance as she stared at him. He unwrapped the CD. Poppy shrugged and flopped on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Anyway, I wish Mum would let me have one day of vacation, she said. She craned her neck to look at James speculatively. I wish I had a mum like yours. Mine's always worrying and trying to fix me. And mine doesn't really care if I come or go. So which is worse? James said wryly. Your parents let you have your own apartment in a building they own because it's cheaper than hiring a manager. James shook his head, his eyes on the CD he was putting in the player. Don't knock your parents, kid. You're luckier than you know. Poppy thought about that as the CD started. She and James both liked trance, the underground electronic sound that had come from Europe. James liked the techno beat. Poppy loved it because it was real music, raw and unpasteurized, made by people who believed in it, people who had the passion, not people who had the money. Besides, world music made her feel a part of other places. She loved the differentness of it, the alienness. Come to think of it, maybe that was what she liked about James too, his differentness. She tilted her head to look at him as the strange rhythms of Burundi drumming filled the air. She knew James better than anyone, but there was always something about him that was closed off to her. Something about him that nobody could reach. Other people took it for arrogance, or coldness, or aloofness, but it wasn't really any of these things. It was just differentness. He was more different than any of the exchange students at school. Time after time, Poppy felt she had almost put her finger on the difference, but it always slipped away, and more than once, especially late at night when they were listening to music or watching the ocean, she felt he was about to tell her. And she'd always felt that if he did tell her, it would be something important, something as shocking and lovely as having a stray cat speak to her. Just now she looked at James, at his clean, carven profile and at the brown waves of hair on his forehead, and thought, he looks sad. Jamie, nothing's wrong, is it? I mean, at home or anything? She was the only person on the planet allowed to call him Jamie. Not even Jacqueline or Michaela had ever tried that. What could be wrong at home? He said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then he shook his head dismissively. Don't worry about it, Poppy. It's nothing important. Just a relative threatening to visit. An unwanted relative. Then the smile did reach his eyes, glinting there. Or maybe I'm just worried about you, he said. Poppy started to say, oh, as if. But instead she found herself saying oddly, are you really? Her seriousness seemed to strike some chord. His smile disappeared, and Poppy found that they were simply looking at each other without any insulating humour between them, just gazing into each other's eyes. James looked uncertain, almost vulnerable. Poppy swallowed. Yes? He opened his mouth, and then he got up abruptly and went to adjust her 170-watt tall boy speakers. When he turned back, his grey eyes were dark and fathomless. Sure, if you were really sick I'd be worried, he said lightly. That's what friends are for, right? Poppy deflated. Right, she said wistfully, and then gave him a determined smile. You're not sick, he said. It's just something you need to get taken care of. The doctor will probably give you some antibiotics or something, with a big needle, he added wickedly. Oh, shut up, Poppy said. He knew she was terrified of injections. Just thought of a needle entering her skin. Here comes your mum, James said, glancing at the door, which was ajar. Poppy didn't see how he could hear anybody coming. The music was loud and the hallway was carpeted, but an instant later her mother pushed the door open. All right, sweetheart, she said briskly. Dr. Franklin says to come right in. I'm sorry, James, but I'm going to have to take Poppy away. That's okay. I can come back this afternoon. Poppy knew when she was defeated. She allowed her mother to tow her to the garage, ignoring James's miming of someone receiving a large injection. An hour later she was lying on Dr. Franklin's examination table, eyes politely averted as his gentle fingers probed her abdomen. Dr. Franklin was tall, lean and grey, with the air of a country doctor, somebody you could trust absolutely. The pain is here, he said. Yeah, but it sort of goes into my back, or maybe I just pulled a muscle back there or something. The gentle, probing fingers moved, then stopped. Dr. Franklin's face changed, and then, somehow, in that moment, Poppy knew it wasn't a pulled muscle. It wasn't an upset stomach. It wasn't anything simple, and things were about to change forever.